Can leave you a bit of space for some background noise. Hello and welcome. Can't believe this is episode 19 of A Wealthy Life. And we're going to be talking about replacing your income and why that needs to be a priority right now. I've literally just got a telephone conversation with someone who is looking to invest in property. And one of the first conversations they brought up, and this is not the first time I've heard it in the last few weeks, is there is news of a recession. The IFA I was speaking to said that we're in a recession. The government's just not talking about it. And I think it depends on what questions you are asking. And that's what this is all about, what questions you're asking as to what you see. Because if you've ever played that game as a child, yellow car, if you look for a yellow car, you'll see a yellow car. If you don't look for a yellow car, you'll never see a yellow car. So this is why questions are so important. And what I want to do as much as I can going forward is always come up with why you need to be listening to what I'm about to say and then get into the detail. So let me explain this to you now. This is about questions and replacing your income and understanding the fear that is about to come down the line. And I'm going to explain how to ask the right questions in a couple of episodes' time, but I want to apply that right now. So why do you need to listen to this particular episode? Because fear is coming. You may already feel the tendrils of it, grappling just on the edges of your consciousness. You're starting to pick up on words like recession, redundancy, and you're going to start to hear words like repossession and bankruptcies coming soon. And you're going to need to stay strong. You're going to need to focus on what practical steps you can build now to shore up your financial resilience. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The fact that there's all this fear coming down the line. Is it real? Is it tangible? Is it media created? How should you react? And let's go through that right now. So the fact is, if you look at the definition of a recession, it's about how many months in a row the prices have been falling and cost of living has been increasing. And so these are a set of economical figures that are put in place so that people in the finance world can speak the same language. But that language isn't really an everyday language for us. We wouldn't go around going, "Oh, how are you today, Tom? Oh, I'm fine. How's your business doing? Well, I'm in a bit of a recession at the moment." We don't speak like that. This is financial language that has filtered into our everyday world. What we need to be focused on, particularly when we're running our businesses, is there still demand? This is back to supply and demand again. Is there still demand? Am I still able to get the materials, the products, the time, the resources that I need to convert into the output that I need? And so this can apply to you as a business owner, as an employee, or even as someone running their own home. Can I access the individual food products I want that I can convert into a meal that I can then feed to my family, because what I want to do is feed my family? And really, isn't that at the bottom of the line for everybody? We just want to be able to feed our families. And when we know that we can feed our families, which require, I'm going to say, a building in which for us to create the food, although you could have done it in the garden in a barbecue, but a building in which we create our food, a fridge that's got products in it that you're going to create into a meal, and then the ability for us to sit down and eat this food. We all want to do that. And when you know that you can do that, when you know that you can, there's even a phrase, isn't there, putting food on the table, that actually quite a lot of the stress goes away. And of course, that's going to require that you can have the lights on and the heating on in order to prepare the food to be hot. And that brings us right the way back to where we were at the very first episode of this podcast, with there is a role within the family about being the financial provider, the person who puts the food on the table, or actually it's split into two: the person who provides the money to buy the food, and then the person who cooks the food to put it on the table. These are the foundations. And if you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we'll put the links to Maslow in the show notes, Maslow spoke about a hierarchy of needs, so an order of needs. And at the very bottom, we need safety and security, which is really about a physical place in which to live where we feel safe, and food, and those, he called them hygiene factors, the ability to keep ourselves alive. And then once you've done that, you can move up a level, and you can move up a level, and eventually you come to the very top, where you're starting to self-actualize, where you're really stepping into the essence of who you are. So that's the philanthropists and the people who work in charities and everything else. So there's this list of needs that you can't move on to the next level if you haven't taken care of the foundation level. With the talk and the fear that's coming down the line about recession and redundancy, what this can actually do is cause you to contract, cause you to feel paralyzed, stop you from making any decisions, never mind good decisions, and potentially cause you to make bad decisions, in the sense that by not making a good decision, you've made a bad decision. So we really need to prepare that we can override this, that we can see through the emotion, which is where we're being manipulated, really, right? There are facts, and the facts require a response. And then there is the emotion and the drama, which is stirred up because it sells papers, it provides clicks, it promotes adverts, it promotes panic. And then what happens is that, and just to refer to the general masses, I'm not speaking to you, but that just generally people are then in such a heightened emotional state that they can't see clearly about what they can do next. And some of the bad decisions they'll make will be maybe to sell a property, maybe to take out debt, maybe to buy something unnecessary, maybe to change job or not change a job. A whole pile of decisions can be made from an emotional place that are not well thought through, that are created and enacted on in a panic. And what we need to do is get back to the logical side of our brains, understand what's happening, and see through this so that we can make a plan. So I'm not going to get too political about it, but at the very simplest explanations, if you just think back over, goodness me, probably the last 4 or 5 years. First off, we went into a whole political tirade, which brought up a lot of emotions again, which was, are we in, are we out of Europe? And whatever you voted for, whatever your beliefs are then or are now, the point and the fact is that we have changed the way that we operate in terms of imports and exports with our nearest neighbours and, you know, all the other neighbours we have. And so this has caused some duties to be applied and duties to be removed, duties to be levied on goods passing across the borders. So theoretically, we would want anything that we created in the UK to be easy to export to another country, because we want to be able to sell, one would assume, our surplus to another party or to another country or to another business that wants to buy from us. That's absolutely fine. But then those countries may also produce that same product. And so they will stick a levy or an extra tax on that to stop us selling our product at an amount of money that was cheaper than they can produce it for, because they want to sell their product to their citizens and then only buy in our surplus. And what's that got to do with anything? Because by buying in, and let's just say it's apples, we send apples to France. France will grow apples as well, but we send our apples to France, and when they've sold all of their apples, or if our apples remained cheaper, which is why they would add a tax, eventually they buy our apples. At that point where somebody in another country buys our product, money transfers from one country to another. Yes, it's only down at the small level. When the French market comes to your town, if there are any genuine French people in your French market and you buy French cheese, technically your pound coins then go into the pocket of that French person who travels back to France, transfers it via the bank into euros, and all of a sudden money has left this country. And it's this coming and going of funds across borders that makes the government nervous. But actually, we're doing that in a small way on a daily basis. You've earned your money, however, through business or employment or investment, and you walk into a superstore. Effectively, let's imagine that as another country, and you transfer your money into the pocket of that supermarket, that other country, that corporate. That money has left your country, your home, and gone to them. So money is exchanging all over the place. And what's happened is that we've got political, petty, schoolyardy about it. So I'm not going to let you sell your French cheese here because I want to sell red Leicester and Gloucester and Stilton cheese. And if I allow in your French brie or your camembert, people will buy that instead. So I'm going to put a levy on that. And then all of a sudden there's a levy on the apples, and then it moves to steel or to fuel. And this is causing the problem coming backwards and forwards. Okay, so that was 2 years ago. Then, of course, we had all the COVID, which then stopped everything moving around generally. Then we've had people lose jobs and get jobs, and there's shortage of lorry drivers, and there's shortages of this, that, and the other, that are the logistics of moving things around. You can hear it with the airports that we've got a problem with. Well, even before they start going on strike, that there aren't enough people working at the airport in terms of customs and baggage and moving people backwards and forwards across borders. And of course, now we've got a whole series of strikes that are going on in terms of baggage handling and everything else. So that's going to all ripple through. So first, there are the levies on the products. There's the creating the product, which hasn't really been a problem up until now. Then the levies on the products, which move them backwards and forwards across borders, and then the logistics of physically moving them backwards and forwards across borders. And then, of course, this year, as if we didn't have enough problems on the world plate, we've seen the invasion of the Ukraine. And I don't know about you, but I've been absolutely shocked at some of the things that I have read about the Ukraine, about how, you know, much of the world's steel comes from there, corn comes from there. And of course, again, here we are with sort of political, emotional, maybe the Russians will argue that there is logic behind what they're doing. It is a little hard to see. But now what we've got is the supply of stuff is being stopped at source through the war. Now, if you are a bread maker and your supplier of grain was the Ukraine, that is a problem for you. If you were about to build a large development and what you needed was steel girders, that is a problem for you. But down at the ordinary human level, when all we want to do is just go to work and deal with, you know, getting our food from the shops and maybe going to the pictures at some point, there isn't a lot of direct impact on us. Where we're starting to see it feel is through fuel costs. So this is not only fuel in terms of heating your house, but also fuel in terms of running your car. And then where we're going to see it a second time round is if petrol prices and diesel prices are going up, that's affecting the logistics again, and then that will increase the costs of food. So now you can very broadly, very simply see how certain actions are having certain impacts, and it's all supply and demand. Is the thing that we want actually available? That's a supply issue. Is the thing that we want available at a price that we could buy it last year, or has the price gone up? Or is part of the supply chain affected? It could be that you can get the apples, but you can't get the grain, so you can't make the pastry. So you can have an apple, but you can't have an apple pie. So you're starting to see things ebb and flow on the shops. Now, probably one of the best things that could have come out of COVID is we are quite used to seeing empty shops. And we have not empty shelves in shops, and we've not had stories of panic buying. But I know that I have been into the shop several times and seen great swathes of empty shelves that I've never seen since COVID. I know that doesn't sound like a long time ago, but sometimes it feels like a long time ago. And yet we're not hearing the stories of panic buying, which is good news. Because what can happen is when the emotions get heightened and people start to panic, they make poor decisions, like going out and buying hundreds of rolls of toilet paper that are completely unnecessary, or bottles of water, or stockpiling dry pasta, or whatever it is. We don't need to be doing that. That is an emotional response. The logical response is actually to say, okay, there are certain situations on the world stage over which I personally have no control. I can't control or really have any impact on the war in Ukraine. I can't do anything about border controls on the borders of the UK. I can't do anything about the logistics of getting supplies into the supermarket or petrol to the petrol stations, unless I suddenly decide I want to give up work and become a lorry driver and ease the problem there. But what can I do? How can I come back from this? So if you understand why all of this is being driven, and I'm not going to get into all the probably political and conspiracy theories of, stirring up things in the background, and actually just start to look at the clear what is going on, you can understand better and see through the emotion and the drama that is going to be coming down the line over the next, 3 months. I think we are going to start seeing the drama really ramp up. And yes, there are going to be people in the UK and in your community, more importantly, that are going to start to struggle. So now, maybe more than ever, is time for you, while you can, to take care of your own financial situation. So then when things start to get tighter, you're going to be in a position where you can contribute to others, either giving your time to go and help down the food bank, or giving donations to the food bank, or maybe helping out a family member whose electricity bills are very high, a child or a senior family member, so there are things that we can do now that look like we're contracting in, but no, we're not. We're just making sure our own house is in order so that we are stronger and able to survive going forward. And it's a bit like that story on the airplane of putting our own mask on first so that we can then help the 6 people that are around us, as opposed to not doing anything and then helping other people and then not putting our own masks on and then getting into difficulty. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to start focusing about putting on your own mask. And this is going to sound really strange, but I'd like you to start counting your money. Here she goes again. Yes, I am. And the thing is that if you are not paying attention to your money, somebody else will be, whether it's an advertiser trying to persuade you to part with your money to buy a product, or whether it's a bank keeping hold of your money and not giving you a good interest rate while making money from your money elsewhere in the market. You need to pay attention to your money. You need to know how much is coming in. You need to know how much is going out. That's the basics. We're on episode 19. You should know that by now. But what you should also look at is, where is it and what is it doing? So, for example, I have just noticed that my business account has been increasing the amount of charges that I've been getting in my business account for basically trading through the account, direct debits going out, payments coming in. And this is because when I originally opened the account, they wanted £2,000 left in the bottom of an account. And if your balance fell below £2,000, then they would charge you for transacting in that account. And they have recently increased that amount to £6,000. Now, that's not a problem, except the way I run my business is I like to keep all my reserve cash in one account and only keep 3,500 turning over, 3.5 up to 5 turning over in the joint account. Any spare money is put to one side. And this is really one of the principles that I've probably already spoken to you about running your bank accounts. And if I haven't, remind me and I will go back and I will do the podcast on that. I've possibly spoken about it to a client or in a blog instead. So if you count your money, you know where it is and you know what it's doing, you know what you're being charged. You also know whether you're actually taking care of your money in the right way And that's before we even get to the point of, is your money working for you, with you, or against you? So that's the first thing. Where is your money? What is it doing? And how aware are you of all this? Now, the second thing is that you're going to come across opportunities to either save money or make more money. So if we think about opportunities to save money, that can be looking at who your providers are, that can be checking where you buy your petrol. I was passing through an area recently coming off of or coming onto the M1 around the Hemel Hempstead, Watford sort of area. And there's this roundabout, and there are 3 petrol stations. On one side is Asda, who always used to be cheap petrol. Then there's Sainsbury's, who always used to be a very good price of petrol. And there's Texaco, who, much like BP, you would expect to be more expensive. And I watched as I went round that roundabout. There was no one queuing up in Sainsbury's. There was no one queuing up in Asda's. There was a huge queue in the Texaco garage. And I was shocked as I drove around that roundabout, because the other thing that I noticed was that there was a penny difference on one side of the road to the other between Sainsbury's and Asda. And surprisingly, Asda was 1p more expensive per litre. That's not really the point. That's convenience, isn't it? That depends whether you're going north-south or south-north. You may not bother to go all the way around the roundabout to go into a roundabout into another petrol station just to save yourself a penny. Personally, you should. What was more shocking is the people that were queuing up at the Texaco garage that was 10p a litre more. Now, most people who have petrol cards use BP or Texaco, those types of garages. And is that just simply because all of these people have corporate petrol cards and they are going in there and they are just buying petrol thinking it doesn't matter what the price is because the business pays, or I can only shop here because the business pays? And actually, what businesses should be doing is looking at whether those cards actually serve them well. And if there are businesses out there paying 10p a litre more on petrol prices, then that's going to have a knock-on effect to the cost of the product that they're selling. So are you a business, or do you work in a business where you could be looking at how you can make opportunities to save money over these coming months? So that's the first thing. Then there are other ways that you can look at saving money. And I've spoken to you about this before, which is to look at how you can insulate your home. If we're all worried about heating bills, how can you insulate your home? Is now the time that you're thinking of replacing your floor? And if you're thinking of replacing your floor, is it also a good time to put down underfloor heating? Is it a good time to get solar panels? Have you got insulation in your roof, in your walls? Do you always need to have the heating on, or could you simply put on another jumper? In fact, could this turn out to be good for the planet? When everything stopped during lockdown, we had a noticeable effect on air quality and on pollution and on the impact on the ozone. Is this another moment where actually we could change the way we think about heating our homes? Bob and I have always lived in a house where we love all the windows open. We've always got fresh air. And in the evening, if we're cold, we put a blanket over our legs. I know that sounds very old personally, but why heat an entire room when it's only my legs and my feet that are cold? Or if my shoulders are cold, put a jumper on. We don't need to sit with the heat on. We sleep with the bedroom windows open. So we don't even have a radiator in the bedroom, because what's the point of heating the bedroom if we're going to have all the windows open because we like it that way? Surprisingly, as a consequence of this, we have not had flu in, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to not only save money, to rethink how we spend, but maybe we'll have, a ripple effect, both on the economy, both on our health. What else can you do in terms of listening maybe to the needs of your clients? Is there an opportunity for you to make more, do more, offer more? So whether you run your own business or whether you're an employee, have you noticed a shift in the needs of your clients? Or can you predict the next shift in the needs of your clients? Are they listening to the news? And what can you do to help them either feel more comfortable about their buying decisions, more comfortable about their financial position, anything that you can do to support one another. Is there an idea that you can take to your employer? As an employer, is there ideas like this that you can share with your employees? What if you helped your employees feel more financially resilient? Wouldn't they feel less stressed and then more able to work in your business in a way that supported you all so that the business continued to thrive through this period? I think above all, what you've got to be looking at here is how to avoid the fear that is coming down the line, the fear that is going to be prevalent in the mainstream media and heavily in social media. How can you protect yourself? How can you put on armor? And the way that you can fight emotional attack is to put on your logical armor. And that is by understanding what's going on behind a story, how it actually genuinely impacts on you. Then you can look at what your money is doing, how you can save money, what are your priorities, what are your priorities for business growth, for personal financial resilience. If you've got a portfolio, an investment portfolio, whether it's a property portfolio or an investment in shares portfolio, is now the time to review your investments. Where can you create additional sources of income so that you can feel more resilient about your financial position? Is now the time to ask for advice? Is now the time to actually invest? Invest now rather than wait till next year. The media are already talking about, as I said, a recession. They're talking about falls in house prices. I can categorically tell you, here we are at the end of June, beginning of July. There is no sign of a drop in the housing market. And yes, interest rates have gone up, but they are still at a historically low level. And therefore, money is still relatively very cheap. And if money is available and properties are on the market, there is going to be no drop in house prices because both supply of money and demand for properties are still there. So while the figures in financial speak are about recession, yes, we've got increased utility bills and that's having an impact on food, but that is not the sort of recession that we saw back in 2007, 2008. And you have time, if you act now, to prepare yourself to become more financially resilient. I've talked to you about financial resilience, having that reserve 3 to 6 months worth of money that would cover your basic bills sitting in a bank account. And I know it won't necessarily be earning a lot of interest compared with inflation and that type of stuff, but it will give you peace of mind. It's another piece of armor to protect you from the emotional pressure that we're going to feel over the next, well, I would say 3 to 6 months easily. By then, we're all going to be so bored of hearing the word recession. We're all going to be either so depressed or so bored that it's not going to have an impact. But the next 3 to 6 months are going to be telling. And you've got an opportunity to do something now. So replacing your income is definitely one of those opportunities. You can look at how you can take the resources that you've got now, invest them in property or in some other form of cash generating business so that you're in a position where you can bring more money into your property, into your family wealth. But also you can enact all of those other things I've said. So count your money. Where is it? What is it doing? Look for opportunities to save. Look for opportunities to make more both within your business, either as an employer or employee. But equally, you can then move on as you avoid all of this drama into making better decisions. And is now the time for you to put creating a second source of income as a priority. If you've done everything else, is that what you need to be focusing on now? And I will happily have a no obligation conversation with you. Talk to me about what position you're in right now and what decisions that you're grappling with. And let me help you comb this out so that you can see what are your priorities. A client I was speaking to just recently is very fortunate to be in a position where they have more than enough money at the moment. And the conversation we had was, great, you're fine now, but what about thinking, because you're in a good position, thinking about the future when maybe you can be planning for your children's inheritance long term, or you can be planning for potentially when you might want to give up work in the way that you are now. You love what you're doing right now, but what if that changes, or you want to change maybe from working 5 days to 3 days? How can you make plans now so that you are prepared for that in the future? So there's never any excuse at any time, either in the calendar year or in the political cycle or in the economic roller coaster, that you should not be paying attention to your money, where it is, what it's doing, how you can save more, how you can make more. Those are the key watchwords for you. Well, I hope that you've got a great deal of tips and advice out of this. I hope that you are going to listen and prepare and avoid all of the emotion and feel strong, because you are logical and you understand what's going on. Don't let your mind, your feeling of wealth, your success, your happiness, your joy be dictated by headlines. You know what's going on. You can understand what's going on. You can ask intelligent questions and you can get to the bottom of this. You can understand where the risks are and where the economic climate might affect you, and you can start right now preparing so that that won't be the case, so that you can mitigate the risks that are coming or may be coming down the line to you. Let me help you if I can. And as always, I'd really like to thank you very much for your time listening to this podcast. This has been A Wealthy Life. My name is Vicky Wooshea, and I hope that I've given you a lot more whoosh in your life and planted those seeds so that you can start making more and saving more money and feeling more financially resilient as we move forward into the second half of 2022. I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, please rate, review, like, share, comment, get in touch, book a call. I'm here waiting to help you. Thank you very much.